All right, folks, we're going to get started. This is the last of our interviews. We've done 4 so far. We did one with Kathy Green to begin with, and then we did one with Guy Robinson, and then Joanne Bartoli, and last week we did Corinne Gaines, and this week is the last one, and Ray had asked if I would be willing to have him interview me. So I haven't, unlike the other interviews that we've done, where I interviewed the people ahead of time in order to find out a little bit about them, in order to lead them to some sort of conclusion. I have not seen any of the questions that Ray has put together, so it'll be on-the-spot interview. Although he's had help from Irene and Anthony and some other people with regard to questions, I haven't seen them. So if I feel like he's not going in the way that I want to go, then I'll just say, you didn't ask this, but I wanted to tell you.
That's fair. That's fair. I will try to make sure that you can hear me even if you're far away, but simply not being as soft as I am usually. It's interesting to note that the group that we have here tonight, there is a difference. Like at the Seder, you say, why is this night different from all the others? What's different about this night here is all the others, there was plenty of wine when wine was around. Tonight, I went back for a second wine, all gone. It says something about the people you hang out with, the people that insist on coming to hear you.
Well, I had the first bottle and a half. I don't know what they were doing.
So, let's get right to it with the first question. You knew who and what you were from rather early in life. And the thing that has always puzzled me, and therefore we're going to find out tonight, how did you come by the courage to actually decide with your background and framework that I'm going to, 1, I'm going to seek to become a priest, and 2, I'm going to keep going until I get there. Where did you get the courage to do that? That's awesome courage.
Well, I've told this story, I think, before, partly in that when I was a child, a teenager especially, I suffered a lot at the hands of my classmates. And I was beat up often on the way on the bus, and beat up on the way home from school, and I had my clothes stolen and pushed off the cafeteria table, and whatever form of things that young people can find to do to somebody who's different. And there was no place to go, really. And so when I wasn't allowed to, or when I didn't take the bus any longer because there were people waiting for me at the bus stop, I would run through the woods in order to get to school, but there were people waiting at the edge of the woods on either side. So it was really, I learned to run very fast. I was a great runner. And in fact, I still hold, I think I still hold the record for the 50-yard dash in the state of Maryland for a 6th grader. Really, and even jumping rope, I was able to jump rope. I did 83 jumps in 60 seconds. So I was really, really skinny and could run fast, and that was necessary because people were quite cruel. And luckily, there were some people at school who saw what was happening. A guidance counselor, secretary, and some other teachers who really sort of took me under their wing and started driving me back and forth to school. But there was no social life because nobody wanted to hang out with me particularly. I had one really close friend who lived 2 doors away, but the other guys didn't really want to hang with me. I was just too weird for them and too uncool. But the church was really, really good to me. When I went to church, the people at church, there was one lady by the name of Ann Pindell particularly, who, as a young person, I fell off the back of a overhang at the church, and I hit my head. And couldn't get a hold of my parents at the time. She just sat there. She kept on putting ice on my head and stopping the bleeding and everything. And she always said, you know, this church loves you, son. You need anything, you come to church. You don't worry about anybody else. And so the people at church were very, very good about nurturing me and saying that the things that other people thought were weird that I did, they thought were great gifts. Like I was into drama, and I was into singing and music, and even as a young kid, I would stand on the top of a table and sing for cookies or go door to door. I brought a picture of what I looked like then. I thought you'd like to see. Here it is at age 3. And I would go from door to door in Ocean City, Maryland, or even, well, just I go anywhere, knock on the door, say, I'll sing I've been working on the railroad if you give me a cookie. And so, fundraising started early, that's right. So, the long and short of it is that the church was very, very good to me, and I had made up my mind that I wanted to be a priest very young, because the church is a place that I felt secure. A lot of people don't feel secure in the church, but I felt safe there. This is unlike many other people that we know who the church was not good to. The church was particularly good to me, made me feel safe, and I had made up my mind the night of my, the guy who was a deacon in the parish where I grew up. I made up my mind that night I was going to tell my parents that I wanted to be a priest. And I was standing there next to another priest who I'd never met before, never even seen before. And it was at the peace, and at the peace he turned to me and said, "You're going to become a priest, aren't you?" It still sends chills down my back to tell the story. I just couldn't believe that he even knew. How did you know? It's like, how would you know that? He said, I sensed it. I was standing right next to you, I sensed it. And that's true. That night I told my parents that's what I wanted to do. And so it took a lot to do it because I was turned down by the Diocese of Maryland. One, I think because I was pretty young. I graduated from college at 19. And I had skipped a year of college in order to get through. And I went before the Ministers Commission. You can't even be ordained until you're 24, so I would have had to wait. And again, I came up with the whole thing, that everything that I thought was really great, they kept on saying, there must be something wrong with you. You're an overachiever. You've done too much. And I can remember the head of the German department at the University of Maryland saying to me, I was up for Rhodes Scholar when I was in college, and the head of the German department said, Mr. Hesse, the committee has decided that you do many things very well, but you don't do any one thing extremely well. And that was it. And that was sort of the attitude of the people in the Ministers Commission. I did a lot of things, I did them really well, but there wasn't any one thing, I wasn't focused yet. And they just thought that that I would suffer terribly if I ever really, they said, you've never come up against a real challenge. You've never really failed at anything, it looks like. I thought it was strange because I thought I failed it a lot. They said, so we're really afraid that if you come up to a failure, you won't know how to handle it. And so what they did is they handed me a failure. And the Bishop of Maryland told me later, I went to see him, and he said, I'm very concerned about the fact that I've learned from some people that you're gay, and we really don't like that sort of thing here. So he sent me to a psychologist. And I went to the psychologist, the psychologist for the diocese, and he wrote back a 5-page report saying he thought I was very qualified. So then the bishop didn't know what to do. And so I moved to New York, took another job, and then the bishop called me back a little bit later and said, I've changed my mind. I said, well, I've just moved to New York, I'm not going to do anything. He said, well, if you ever decide you want to go to seminary, let me know. So I worked for a couple of years in New York, and I made up my mind that I was going to go to seminary, but I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell anybody that I was going to seminary. I went the whole first semester before I even told anybody, because I had not gotten in the first time. It was kind of a failure, and I didn't want to, and people were upset for me. I was very upset about it. And I remember my parents saying, they just were very concerned that I'd not go through that type of rejection again. It was very, very hard on them and on me. And so I called up the Bishop of Maryland. I said, I've decided I'd like to go to seminary. He said, well, we really don't have much room right now. So I won't tell you what I said on the phone, but it was just 2 words. And that was it. And I had already gotten into seminary at Union and went through and came to a diocese where this was not an issue.
Very good. In the